How we do this, we are the truest. Got these fangs super sharp, your shit toothless. Cold-hearted, yeah we ruthless. All the ghouls in the cut, let's get ghoulish. In the graveyard, acting foolish. Finna dance with the devil to no music. Cold-hearted, yeah we ruthless. All the ghouls in the cut, let's get ghoulish.
Holy shit, what is that? It's a podcast. A podcast called Ghoulish. With me, Max Booth, an undead host. And on today's episode of the podcast, I am talking to Laurel Hightower about Mothman because she has a brand new book called Below, out now through my own small press, Ghoulish Books. Available now, Below. A book about Mothman. It's a Mothman creature feature late night road trip novella. Great, terrifying novella. I think anyone who reads it will have a great, spooky time. And you can buy that now at Ghoulish Books. So you should go do it. And you should listen to the episode I did with Laurel Hightower about Mothman. It's a fun one. Let's just jump right into it, shall we? Wait, not yet. Don't jump. Wait, hold on. It's not worth it. Don't jump yet. Because I need to tell you real fast that the Ghoulish Book Festival in San Antonio is coming up pretty soon. The end of April and the beginning of May, April 30th and May 1st, the halfway to Halloween point in time of the year. We're throwing a book fest, a spooky book fest in San Antonio. Laurel Hightower is one of the special guests of honor. It's going to be a fun time, lots of fun panels, readings, contests, and lots of writers and small presses from all around the country will be coming to San Antonio to sell books, to have a great time. So if you live locally or you want to make the trip, go on over to ghoulishbookfest.com and buy a badge. Badges are available right now. Go do it. It's going to be fun. I hope to see you there. Okay, that's all I got. Buy below. Get a badge for the Ghoulish Book Fest. And listen to this great podcast with Laurel Hightower about Mothman. So I have on the show with me today a bona fide Mothman expert. How did you learn about Mothman?
I am I'm ashamed to say it was fully pop culture. It was watching the Mothman Prophecies back when it came out, like I think in 2002. That was the first I'd heard of Mothman.
Okay, and what did you think of that movie?
I really dug it. I thought that the ambiguity was really cool. I really liked, and so in the last couple of years, I picked up John Keel's book and read the whole thing, and that really reinforced, how it dovetailed super well with the movie, because it was like, oh, well, the whole thing was incredibly ambiguous, which, you know, I was extremely, extremely literal for most of my life. So like that kind of stuff used to drive me insane. I was like, pardon me, the story is incomplete. You have not answered my questions. But now that I'm a little bit older and have read some more stuff that makes me appreciate that, I recently rewatched the movie and I was like, hell yeah, this actually holds up really well.
Wow. Okay. I will. I apologize if there's a lot of banging at my end. Frank has decided he is playing catch with himself on the bed by rolling his ball down the ramp and getting it and running back up. But I will edit that noise out.
Leave it in. Dogs make everything better.
Yeah.
Everything.
That's true. I agree. Was the book? Was that posed as nonfiction? I think.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. And what? I don't know anything about the book. I saw the movie once, and I don't remember anything about it. I need to revisit it. What is the book about, basically?
Okay, so it kind of details the events of like a 13-month stretch in, and I'm probably going to get the year a little bit wrong. It's like 68, 69, I think, in Point Pleasant, West Virginia. And this Mothman entity kind of thing was certainly part of it, in that there were a lot of really strange occurrences, and a lot of people reported seeing like a large man-shaped flying creature thing, and it would sort of sometimes it would interact and I don't know, a lot of times it seemed to like burn the crap out of people's eyes, which seems uncool, but otherwise, the and it but it also just aligned with a whole lot of like when Keel arrived there, I think there was a lot of stuff where like people had been they would swear that they had seen him 2 days before, like exactly him, and that the voice sounded the same. And, the more he goes into it, he details all these bizarre, like telephone um, conspiracy kind of things, like where people were able to make calls from his number. And this is the 60s.
Mhm.
And just all these, and I am so bad at summarizing things. So I'd just like to go on record as saying thank you so much for doing the back cover blur, because it would have been like 18 pages long if I'd written it. Um, but yeah, so it was just a lot of really bizarre occurrences. Some of them seem kind of UFO. Some of them, seem a little bit alien intervention. Some seem conspiracy theory, like government kind of thing. But it was interesting, just because it was so unanswerable. Um, and I think the conclusion, spoiler alert, that he comes to at the end of it is really not so much related to Mothman. It's like, well, he kind of concludes there's these things that are beyond our control, beyond our understanding. But the real problem is these weirdos who start tracking you once you show an interest in it. And
Yeah.
so that was it was interesting because it makes sense to me. And again, like I said, I just rewatched the movie, and their wise sage guy that they go to for answers, one of the things that he says, when they want these answers, he's like, they're up on a different plane. They don't care. They're not going to explain themselves to you. Like, would you explain yourself to a cockroach? And I thought that was so interesting, because to me that just makes it significantly more realistic.
Have you ever felt like that? Like you were being tracked? You know what I mean? Like maybe you uncovered something you weren't supposed to know, and they were on to you now.
Well, I don't think so, but I'm also not the sort of person that like goes and solves mysteries I'm not supposed to, because I'm a very inert person. So it's like if I can't solve it by laying, on my bed staring at the ceiling, it's probably not going
It's probably wise. I wonder though if there's something exciting about that sensation. Like maybe that's why, like as a society, we all fell in love with like the X-Files at the same time, because that's what
Yeah.
that show is about. And you get to live that type of experience through the cast. I don't know. I've
I
only I've only felt like that once, and it was kind of thrilling.
okay, we got to hear this. What were you investigating?
Yeah, so I was this terrible website that I wrote for like a month and then quit. They asked me to write an article about a anti Scientology website that was secretly owned by Scientology.
Oh God.
Yeah, so it was one of those like shitty websites where you just write like a small list and you rank things usually. Um, but I didn't really understand that's all they wanted. So I spent like a week researching this website that no longer existed. Like I went down this rabbit hole of going through the archives of the internet and finding when the website was still around. I found an old telephone number when I was at my hotel job of the website, and I called them from my hotel front desk, and it went to some like automatic message advertising like oil changes or something. And I thought, okay, this is just a this is a dead end, and labeled that Milne. I called the same mill again just because I had nothing else to do, and it was advertising something completely different. And I stayed on the line, and a man answered the phone, and he was like, "How can I help you?" And I said, "What is this?" And then he said he was advertising something completely different from the two other things I've heard. And I was like, "Oh, never mind." I called this number because I found it on a Scientology website, and he got really quiet. He said, "What do you know about Scientology?" and then he and then he began going through this whole speech about how it's not that bad, how he's not in it, but he's filled friends of his who talk it up a lot. And then I quietly got off the phone. But for like 2 days, I was like, "Oh shit, they know I know." I'm also a really paranoid person by nature, so I don't think that was the best thing for me to do. And I emailed the website saying, "I need more time. I'm on to something." And they were like, "Whoa, we do not need you to do this."
That, though, I think you hit the nail on the head though. If there was like a modern entity that I believe would be capable of that, it's totally Scientology. That's so my husband is very, very into like esoteric and like spiritual studies kind of thing. He's a philosophy major, so he like reads about all these different things and he's just interested. And he lived in New York for a while. And so like, I mean, this is decades ago. He like went into one of the Scientology things just out of interest to like, to hear about it some or whatever, managed to end up on a mailing list. And I can't tell you how many times in states he moved and they tracked him down. Like by the time we were married and living in this house, like he was still getting mailings from them. I was like, are you a Scientology freak? Because we need a divorce. But,
Do you think a Mothman's a Scientologist?
Oh, no, because he's never tried to extort money out of people to my knowledge.
That we know of, yeah.
Yeah,
Like,
that we know of.
like does Mothman entertain any type of currency? I don't know.
I'm not sure because again, I'm not sure what the deal is with like the burning the eyeballs. I don't know what anybody gets out of that. Well, like do you ever and I'm not really like a ufologist or anything, like I watch like Hellier and stuff like that. And it seems to be kind of a common theme with people. Like they run into some sort of weird entity and like their eyes get burned. And I'm like, the fuck is this? Like
Maybe they just look into the sun too long. I don't know.
maybe that's it. All of these people were just staring at the sun and they omitted that information.
Yeah, that was unrelated.
When they talk to Unsolved Mysteries, it's like, no, out of nowhere.
But I do have massive cat allergies. It has nothing to do with anything. I mean, isn't like achiness a side effect of radiation? Maybe it has something to do with that.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of the conclusion that a lot of them have reached. Like I say, I'm not a ufologist or anything, but I'm realizing how many episodes of things I've watched that kind of explore this. And yeah, I mean, it really does seem a lot like radiation, but then I could sort of understand that for people who report seeing like a vessel of some kind. But I'm like, is Mothman himself radioactive? Because if so, like, fuck off. Like, I don't want your conspiracy if it's going to come with like lesions. And
What, like, does anyone have any thoughts about where Mothman came from or the background of Mothman? Like, maybe Mothman was invented in some government lab with radiation. I don't know.
well, and this is where I'm going to veer from. And it's interesting too, because yeah, when you mentioned it's like Keel's book is billed as nonfiction. And I think he believed that it was. I actually think, I mean, the big thing that comes through besides the conspiracy is the ego of this man is just like hilariously evident. But beyond that, I think he reported things as they actually happened to him. So it's interesting, to look at it. And I'll just kind of for the sake of exploring it, I kind of look at it all as nonfiction. I'm taking the people's, statements as face value. But at this point, what I remember most is the movie, and so this may be trumped up a little bit, but they were talking about actually that there had been references to something like Mothman, like just a moth-like creature or something that heralded disasters that ostensibly like appeared back in like cave paintings or something. Now, again, I am not going to swear to the veracity of that because I have not verified that information.
It's possible Mothman is like the original man. If he even
Oh,
if he
dude.
even is a man, because I think I've seen things where like Mothman is like a non-binary icon, right?
Yeah, and given the way that people have described the voice, I think that's probably accurate.
How do they
Um,
describe the voice?
as sort of as sort of like that, kind of non-gendered, like that.
Hmm.
I think people make the assumption that it's Mothman, because I also think that's just the cultural, like, default.
Hmm.
And also probably because of the size, and maybe there was nothing that seemed indicative to them of a female, but the voice is often described as being just sort of like ambiguous in that fashion.
I think the name Mothman, if I recall correctly, it was labeled around the same time that the Batman TV show was really popular. So like everything was blank animal man.
Ah,
I
okay,
think.
that makes sense. That makes sense.
So people have filled this Moth Pilson's voice. What have they been saying?
So and again, the Keel stuff is what I'm most familiar with. But the critter, moth critter, would give like snippets of information that seemed to like tell the future, like, oh, predict. There we go.
Oh, all
Predict
right.
like disasters. So he predicted the culmination in Point Pleasant was the collapse of the Silver Bridge in December of 1969. So but I think it was something like the phrase that was said was like a great disaster on the Ohio River or something. And I think that, like, leading up to that, there were a couple other little, like, kind of glimpses, like something about 99 will die, and then a plane crashed with 99 people on it. Now, again, I may just be talking about the movie.
Yeah.
It's been like probably close to a year since I read the whole Mothman book. So, but I mean, basically, this is what we were looking at, is that it was giving a certain number of kind of predictions like that, and would often know things that there really was no way of knowing, even if you were to say, like, okay, it can read your mind, like, because it would predict someone showing up in a place when they had, like, gotten lost and had never intended to go there. Just sort of like real odd stuff where you're like, I mean, there almost has to become some kind of like supernatural element to this, but in some ways it's a little bit mundane. It's interesting.
It reminds me of that Saturday Night Live skit with Chris Walken promoting the Dead Zone. Have you seen that? Well, he's just giving really mundane predictions. Like he touches someone, he's like, "You will step in a puddle tonight."
I haven't, but I need to watch that.
Good luck finding it. It is so difficult finding SNL skits from the past that on YouTube. They really have that copyrighted down. This blows my mind with the Mothman. I didn't know that they were doing these predictions. So like would Mothman just like, I don't know, like fly down in some alley and confront someone and just tell them something that's gonna happen and fly away? What is like the logistics of this?
And that's interesting too, because from what I like vaguely recall, most of the like vocal type predictions I think occurred over the phone. And most of the time when people actually saw Mothman, there was not really speech exchanged. I think in some cases there might have been. And one thing that confused me a little bit, have you heard of like Indrid Cold?
No.
Okay, so and I'm not super clear whether Indrid Cold is supposed to be Mothman or not, but at the time all this was going on, there was a guy named like Woody, and I'm blanking on the last name, but he lived in Point Pleasant, and he had like the most ridiculously extensive interactions with Indrid Cold, who again may or may not have been Mothman, but there was a lot of exchange there, and he actually wrote a book, which I probably want to track down and read. It's just his experiences seem so completely out there. So yeah, I mean, some of it was predictions of things. Some of it a lot of it were like warnings. But again, Keel sort of reaches the conclusion that those warnings of like, don't investigate this, don't look any further, kind of things were not from that same entity. Like
Yeah.
that was another sort of occurrence, which again, like makes sense to me. And also that it's just such an irritating stance. Like it's like,
Yeah.
I'm gonna flash a big red light over here, and there's gonna be like a disco ball and a huge party and a lot of music. But damn you for looking! Now you've screwed yourself. It's like what the
It's like
fuck?
you definitely wanted me to look at that. Shut up.
Yeah, like stop it.
It's like when someone gets a new heel cap and then they just go, "Oh yeah, it's no big deal.
Yeah,
You don't need to
like
notice."
or like the weird and I have tattoos. I know, I don't touch anybody's tattoos, but I always thought it was weird when like someone would walk in with like full sleeves and they're absolutely gorgeous, and they're wearing sleeveless uh shirt, and I would be like, whoa, I just really dig your ink. I really like the detail on that. And they would be like really fucking annoyed that I brought it up. And I was like, I'm not gonna pursue this conversation, but that seems a little sketchy. Like it's like you're out here trying to pick a fight with people.
I agree. I'm curious now. Like, I wonder why people associated some of these phone calls with Mothman. Like, I assume the phone calls didn't begin with like, "Yes, hello, this is the Mothman speaking."
Although, I feel like if Mothman had been as type A as like I am, that is exactly how it would have started. Like, let me identify myself. You probably don't remember me. We met a couple times, but I don't want to put us in an awkward social situation where you have to guess who this is.
Oh, so it's like me talking to Joe Lansdale.
Yeah.
And it always ends every time. "I know who you are, Max." Oh, okay.
I never want to make that assumption. Like I send texts to people that like if we haven't texted in let's say a month, I'll be like, "Hey, this is Laurel," and it's, because I have this feeling like, what if they've changed phones? What if they
Yeah.
have to write back new phone who dis, and then I'm mortified.
Yeah. Let's hope the Mothman has able had to type that. That would be pretty embarrassing, I think. I would lose respect for
I know.
Mothman.
Maybe
Ugh.
that is his calling card. Like he has to like say weird shit so that people are like, "Oh, okay, that's got to be Mothman."
It's
That's
just
it,
Mothman's brand.
Yeah, yeah, that makes sense. To just be fucking weird. Yeah.
I'm also surprised because I was thinking Mothman might be more violent. Maybe that's just because I've read Below many times, and that's a really violent book. But I
Isn't
also
it?
thought I saw something online where it was assumed Mothman was responsible for this bridge collapse. But now he's just like a fortune teller predicting it's going to happen.
Yeah, and that is another one of the questions. Like, is is Mothman responsible? Did he cause these disasters, or was he just aware of them? And if he was just aware of them and he was just like, what was the point? Is it just like the dude who drives up with like his, brand new like souped out car, like thumping his bass next to you at a stoplight? Is he
Yeah.
just like, sup, look at me, I can predict the future. It's not useful to you at all because I'm not giving you enough detail to do anything, but I just want to make you aware I can do this. And then
You
just like,
impressed?
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, I'm beginning not to like Mothman. Okay. Let's pivot to Below, a really good book that's coming out. Well, it might be out now when the listeners are listening to this, so it might be coming out the day after they listen to this. Below is a book you wrote, and it's coming out through Ghoulish Books. Tell the listeners a little bit about it.
Well, so Below is kind of my take on the Mothman legend, and it just follows a woman named Addie who is making a very anxiety-inducing drive through the mountains of West Virginia, and she runs into some trouble, and she ends up trusting somebody to help her out of it a little bit, and then everything goes directly to hell.
Yeah, that sounds about right. Now, it's not like directly a Mothman book, but it is a book that heavily features Mothman, I think. I wonder, like, when you were devising this novella, what came first? Like the main story of Addie driving through, then something happening? Or did you think from the very beginning, okay, I'm going to write some Mothman stuff?
Well, it was a little bit of both. So like a lot of my writing process like will be, I'll have these ideas of like something that I want to write about or want to include, just like an element, right? So it's like, ooh, it would be cool to have a story that, that dealt with Mothman to some extent. And so I had kind of had that on the back burner because I was like, well, okay, I want to do this, but I'm not sure what kind of story to tell around Mothman, because I just didn't want to regurgitate the same thing. And so that was kind of on the back burner. And then yeah, I made my horribly misjudged solo drive to Scares That Care last year. And that kind of was like got me thinking of like, and I don't know if I've said this to you before, but it was like, so it's about a 9-hour drive for me. Um, and I was trying, like, I am like have always been like a super like hesitant, very meek person. Like I don't, I'm always like very afraid to try new things. And so I was like, I'm turning 40 next year, which now is this year, and I want to be better than this. Like I want to be able to do solo drives. I want to feel the confidence to do this. That was really fucking stupid. I can feel really confident in being able to take a solo flight, and that is that's where I'm going to land on the
Yeah.
bravery scale, because I now have vestibular vertigo, which was kicked off by this drive.
Oh no.
Uh, and apparently that's a thing. Apparently, like that can happen. It's commonly like kind of lurking, and it'll get kicked off by a long drive or an airplane ride. So basically, I felt incredibly drunk the whole drive. And it was raining, and the mountains of West Virginia are probably my least fun place to drive. So it was terrifying. And so I kind of had that experience, and then I just also it kind of the last piece came together with thankfully my husband was driving the next time, and I was just kind of looking out the window, and I do that super fun like little touch of OCD, like intrusive thought thing, where you look at something and you're like, oh man, my mind just now pictured the absolute worst thing that could happen with that razor. And
Yeah.
and so like I that just happens all the time, and I'm sitting there like, looking out the window, and a semi passes on the right on like an overpass, and I was like, I just like pictured it, just like what would I do, like if it wasn't my car, it was like a big ass semi just sails over that, and just you have that moment of it just like being in the air, and then you're like, fuck. And I started thinking, I was like, would we stop with my husband driving? I'm gonna say no, but with like with me, I probably would. So it just sort of like that spark kind of hit. And that's what I look for in writing a story, is like, I feel like I don't want to force like including an element in something. I want to feel the spark of like, ooh, this is what starts this story. This is what I'm writing about. Um, because yeah, once I got that, like I wrote it in the space of like 3.5 weeks or something.
Yeah. I mean, you hit me up, I think it was in December, with the novella, and it reads like someone wrote it in a quick, frantic pace. It's so fast paced, but it's a good thing.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I'm glad. And that's, well, it's actually like, so, not to like try and suck up or anything, but this is one of these things, like part of why I wanted to reach out to you about it is because I knew I was listening to you on Paper Cuts, and like I know Jay said something about like, oh well, it's Laurel Hightower, so you have to publish it, and you said like, no, I would, and but that's exactly what I prefer, and I'm absolutely not trying to insinuate that, oh, I can get published anywhere. That is not the case. But I knew that if it wasn't good, if the elements did not blend together, I knew you would say like, no, hard pass.
Yeah.
And that's kind of that's what I need, because I don't know, because it's like, I'm a writer, I'm like insecure about, does that work, I don't know, is there too much of this? And so I like to know that somebody's gonna be like, you're talking out your ass, Hightower, we need you to do something else.
I mean, I think the book was pretty much like good to go when you sent it. I mean, we did some edits, not like a ton. I think you added like one scene to the book, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it felt like, oh, this is a book ready to be read. It's like the moment I got it. I those night drives you were talking about, I've done those, and they were just terrifying. I don't know how anyone does it so often, like truck drive-olds. That has to be one of the most terrifying things ever.
I agree. I would not want that to be something that like I was constantly required to do. Because and that's the thing, like I kept thinking when I was driving, I was like, see, this is why solo drives suck. I can't be like, oh shit, my vision is completely fucked and I feel drunk. Perhaps you should take the wheel because there's no
Yeah.
one to take the fucking wheel. Insert Carrie Underwood, Jesus take the wheel joke here. But you know,
And then you think, well, is it safer just to like pull off and stop on the side of this highway in the middle of the night? Nope, that seems even more dangerous. Like you have no options. You're just
yep.
stuck to keep driving. So you're going to be a special guest at the upcoming Ghoulish Book Fest, and you're supposedly going to be judging a Mothman costume contest.
Oh, awesome. That's cool.
Any tips for those listening who's attending and what you might be looking for in a Mothman costume?
I think that I would like and see this is fun because Mothman is like there's certain elements that are sort of agreed upon about the appearance, right? There's like the
Yeah.
red eyes and the height and stuff like that. But the rest is kind of amorphous. So I think I would be interested in seeing like people's individual take on how they think he would like appear to them.
Yeah, I like that. All right. I have no idea if anyone's going to do this. I hope so. I hope we get just nothing but Mothman cosplay. I think that would be great. And it would be really confusing to anyone else in San Antonio driving by in
Why?
April.
Why are all these moth people here? Well, and that's funny. I actually did order like a couple little little like I'm not gonna say it's a full costume, but there's some little accessories that I'm gonna wear for the launch party if my son does not steal them out from under me first.
Oh, I mean, that might be funny too.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, I think that's a wrap. Thank you for coming on and talking Mothman. Thank you for writing below. How can folks find you online?
Thank you very much for having me on, and thank you for publishing it. And I have a woefully out of date website, laurelhightower.com, but mostly I'm on Twitter, and you should probably hop on and tell me to get off when you see me on there because it's bad.
And that was Laurel Hightower talking about Mothman. Go pick up your new novella, Below, out now through Ghoulish Books. You can go on over to ghoulishbooks.com to pick up a copy. It's also available at bookshop.org and indiebound.com and any other place you usually buy books. Subscribe to our newsletter at theghoulishtimes.substack.com. Leave a review of the podcast on iTunes.
Live spooky, die spooky.
Rest in peace, Max